So what we're going to do next, we're going to leave the world of media a little bit and go in to see what are we actually doing online. We're going to look at the numbers, and who better to do that than comScore, who sits with all the numbers, and Berit, who runs communication in Europe. So please come up here and share the numbers. What are we doing online?
Thank you.
You have the clicker, perfect.
Yeah. Hey, morning everyone. Thanks for having me here. And as I've just been introduced, I work for comScore, and we deal with all the numbers. So we do research about online audiences, etc. And the next 10 minutes won't be revolutionizing. It might not be something that you've never heard before. But what I'd like to do is put things into perspective and put some data to the kind of buzzwords that we all talk about today, tomorrow, and in the future. And one of the things, obviously, that we see is people are always connected these days. And that's not just in Europe, that's worldwide. We've got multiple devices that we use. We've got connected TVs. We're always on. We always have the information at our fingertips. And here's a quick overview of what people actually do online. And we all know, like we've done these things in the past offline in traditional stores. And a lot of these behaviors have transferred to the online world. So, for example, 3 in 4 actually shop online these days. It's becoming quite normal for people to do that. We consume sports content or news, or we check the weather, our bank accounts, do online banking, and there's loads of these activities. But there's also a few things that are new that we maybe in that form haven't done before, and that's social media. And I think it's fair to say that digital wouldn't be the same without social. It's really formed the digital media world and the way we interact and like talk to friends and family, share our pictures, news. And today, actually, in Europe, 1 in 4 minutes online is spent on social networking. And I said digital wouldn't be the same without social. And I think it's fair to say social wouldn't be the same without Facebook. It's big in almost every country in the world. And there's just a quick chart to show you how fast it's actually still growing. And just in the last 2.5 years or so, Facebook has taken the top social networking position in another 9 countries. And it's now, comScore measures 44 markets around the world, and Facebook is the leading social networking site in 40 out of 44. Just to put it into perspective. And it's not just the audience size, it's also the time people spend on social networking and Facebook. So 2 in 3 minutes that are spent on social networking sites are actually spent on Facebook, and 1 out of every 7 minutes that are spent online are spent on Facebook. And so all of this data is for Europe as the complete region. But there's more in social than Facebook. I mean, Facebook is big, but there's a new trend that we see. It's becoming more visual. I mean, we can share pictures on Facebook, but it's much more fun to pin things. I mean, Pinterest was one of the success stories of maybe the last year, and it's grown 18-fold over just the past year. And one of the things that we all seem to love is Instagram. And Instagram didn't invent photo sharing, but it made it cool, it added an edge to it. And today, over 22 million Europeans actually use Instagram. Oh, sorry. And one of the things that's also, I mean, Instagram is a good example. It's the combination of social and mobile that really works hand in hand. It's so good if you just walk around and you can connect to your friends, you can share what you see in that moment. And one of the things we also see is the fastest growing activity on smartphones in the last year was actually check-in services, such as Foursquare or checking in on Facebook. And I mean, there are different trends here, and I'm going to talk about retail in a sec. But for example, instant messaging has kind of had a revival, and that's due to mainly one company called WhatsApp. I mean, most of us probably use it. And we can see here that in Europe, nearly 50 million people use instant messaging on their smartphones. And you might say mobile isn't a trend as such anymore, but I think it still deserves a mention. It has kind of transformed the way we all live our lives every day. Most of us probably wouldn't leave the house without our phone. I mean, I'm counting myself in there. I'd probably turn around and get my phone if I leave in the morning. But there's also kind of a little bit of caution to add, because not everyone has a smartphone. I mean, everyone in this room probably does, but there's different people. There's people that are not like us or our peers, and maybe they don't have a smartphone yet. So it's quite interesting to actually look at the data. And in Europe at the moment, 54% of people have a smartphone. And it might be higher in some countries, like Spain, for example, is one of the leading countries with 63% penetration. But in Germany, it's still under 50%. So there is less than half the people have a smartphone, that have a mobile phone in Germany. And one of the success stories to point out here is Google. I mean, Google's operating system, Android, has grown very quickly over the past year. And you can see that at now 46% of all smartphones run on Android in Europe. But it's not just the number of devices and so smartphones and tablets that are increasing, but it's also the usage. We seem to use them more and more every day. More activities transfer to the small devices that we have. And you can see here that it's the percent of traffic that comes from non-PCs. So this could be smartphones, tablets, e-readers, an iPod Touch, a game console that connects to the internet. And you can see the UK is really the leading country here, with already 16% of overall website traffic coming from connected devices and not from PCs. So that's something that can't be ignored at all. And the European average, just an FYI, is just over 8%. And this chart I just showed, I think it's going to look very different in 2 years' time. It's going to be things such as 4G and LTE. They're really going to bump up the usage that we all have. And obviously, multi-device ownership. I mean, the more devices we use, the more usage and traffic there's going to be. And one of the things, obviously, is tablets. In Europe at the moment, 14.1% of people that have a smartphone also have a tablet. So they have at least 2 devices. They probably have a laptop. They probably have a TV that's connected to the internet. So they probably have 4 devices at home. But the tablet is really establishing itself as the 4th screen, as we call it. One of the things that has been transformed by connected devices is shopping. I mean, Robert just shown some really good examples of shopping experiences in stores, and I don't think people ever not going to go into a store to buy products. But there's new ways as well, and they are there simultaneously to be used. And here's some kind of quick facts that show how normal online shopping is really becoming. And in Europe at the moment, 314.5 million people visit online retail sites, and that was in September. That's probably going to go up by quite a lot approaching Christmas, and it's an 8% year-on-year growth. But it's not just online, but it's kind of the instantaneous experience that we have using mobile phones. So it's always on our fingertips, and people might not necessarily buy the product immediately, but it's this kind of window shopping. It's the comparing prices, maybe while you're in a store. You might send pictures to your friends. And so we've actually looked at some of the activities people do with smartphones while they're shopping. And you can see people look for the store location, they compare product prices. And what I think is quite important is 13% actually purchase goods on their smartphones in Europe. And this is one of the things that really surprised me, because I always do this. I go into this trap where I think people are like me. And the only thing I've ever bought on my phone is maybe a cinema ticket. And I didn't expect people to spend that much. But if you add up this data, you can see that 55% of Europeans that shop with their smartphone have actually spent over 100 euros during the month, which I think is quite a significant number. So I've quickly walked you through this, and we've got so much data I could talk for another few hours, but I'll leave it with this. And this is only a quick snapshot of what trends there are and the things that I think everyone should be aware of. But one of the things I would like to leave you with is to not assume that everyone is like us and our peers, but to actually use the data that is available to everyone and drive actions from the insights that we have. And I'd just like to finish with one really quick anecdote, which I thought was quite funny. Because so I'm from the north of Germany, from a really small town. I live in London now. So my mum came to visit me, and I asked what she wants to do. And the only thing she wanted to do was to go to the Apple store, because she had never seen an iPad before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent.